So a fast decision, which will obviously reverberate for a long time to come. Let's talk about this with David Frum, staff writer at The Atlantic. David, you just wrote a piece called Wrong Case, Right Verdict. What do you mean by that?
Of all the many criminal cases against Donald Trump, and the civil ones too, the underlying behavior is maybe the least consequential of all the bad things he did. He's accused of trying to overthrow an election by violence. He's accused of masterminding a conspiracy to subvert that same election by fraud. He racked up $500 million in damages for his commercial frauds. He racked up $90 million in damages for sexually assaulting a woman and then defaming her. In 2018, he paid $25 million in damages to victims of his Trump University fraud. So compared to those, this is the least, I would say, heavy of all the things against him, but it's the only one that people are going to get a really clear view of before the 2024 election. So it's the right answer, but much of what is important about Donald Trump is going to be postponed, legally at least, until after 2024.
So is the timing of it really the only way in which, to you, this one actually matters?
Well, look, it matters. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. He is a resident of Florida. In his own adopted state, he is not able to cast a vote for himself. And the reason he's not able to cast a vote for himself is Florida had a referendum to allow former felons to vote, to reclaim their voting rights. Donald Trump's party, the Republican Party, eviscerated that referendum to say, look, we're going to make it very difficult for felons to vote in Florida despite the will of the people. So in Florida, the rule seems to be it's not okay for voting by felons, but we are encouraging you to vote for a felon. That's going to matter, I think.
So, I mean, obviously, the word history has been used so much today, and I suppose that the closest the United States maybe has ever come was Nixon, but then his party convinced him to resign. But now you have Republicans reacting, saying things like, it's time for Republicans to get busy. When you see things like that, what does that suggest is coming, and what do you make of it?
Well, remember, Donald Trump is here prosecuted for things he did before he became president of the United States. These are not in any way official acts. These are tampering with the campaign process in sleazy and scuzzy ways, but by a person who was then a candidate for president, but not a president. So it's not comparable to other cases we've had before. In Bill Clinton's case, a private lawsuit was allowed to go forward against a president for things he did as president that were outside his office. Richard Nixon faced criminal prosecution and was then pardoned. The case was never brought. So this makes history, but it's in a context where the United States has been arguing for a long time about what is the president subject to, what is he not subject to.
In terms of the reaction, I mean, there's a lot of hyperbole today, right? And in terms of the reaction, when you see a tweet, though, from Republicans that say something like, it's time for Republicans at the local level to get busy, to sort of bring charges against Democrats, in your mind, what worries you about what might be coming?
I don't worry that Republicans are going to succeed in doing this. Look, they spent a lot of time trying to gin up a bogus case against President Biden. It's collapsed. Like, the theory of the people who tweet things like that don't understand what it means to live in a free country. The courts are generally fair, and there are a lot of safeguards. You can't just bring a charge against somebody. You have to go to a grand jury in most states or go through an arraignment process. You have to get judges involved. If you want to bring criminal charges, it is a difficult thing to do. And if you then want to have a trial and bring somebody before a jury, that's a difficult thing to do. So there's a kind of defamation of the United States that Trump defenders have to do. I mean, ironically, I'm a person of the right. I'm a conservative. I've spent a lot of my life arguing against critics of the left that American institutions work, they're fair. And now you have, in many cases, former friends of mine saying, oh, any prosecutor can prosecute anybody for anything. No, that's not true. That's a defamation. That's a slur. And when Marco Rubio, who would like to be Donald Trump's vice president, tweets a video trying to equate the legal courts of the United States to those of Castro's Cuba, that's just an insult and intolerable.
I've heard you talk about concerns about democracy a lot. We've had that conversation a lot about the future of democracy in the United States. What is it about this that worries you, or are you today less worried about it?
If Donald Trump somehow returns to the presidency, his top and maybe his only priority is going to be to smash up the legal system. He's got criminal charges in New York and Georgia, now convicted in New York. He's got possible criminal charges in Arizona. He's got federal charges in 2 different jurisdictions. He's got all these civil cases. The only way he can not go bankrupt, the only way he can stay out of prison is to wreck the legal system of the United States, to try to pardon himself, to fire people in the Justice Department, to so politicize it to protect himself. And if he tries that, it's going to be chaos. There are going to be people in the streets. It's going to be just a scene. The United States will not be able to do anything. There won't be any agenda. All we will be doing in a second Trump term is arguing about Donald Trump's attempts to overthrow the law to protect himself.
In terms of how people respond to this, I mean, I appreciate that many people today are saying, everybody take a breath, let's not get hysterical about this, one thing at a time. What would be the best reaction to this moment? When you put on your optimistic hat, what is the best thing that could happen in response to this today?
The best thing that could happen is that the delegates to the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee in July would say, you know what? A person who's been convicted of a felony shouldn't be our party's nominee. So let's have a convention and pick among Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis and others, the people who racked up a lot of votes among delegates, and pick somebody else and pick a non-convicted felon to be our running mate, to be our nominee to run against Joe Biden.
Do you really think that's what's going to happen, though?
You asked me what was the best thing, not the most plausible.
Fair. Okay. David Frum, as always, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.